The Indian Ocean, a sapphire expanse by day, transformed into an inky black canvas under the cloak of night. Stars, like scattered diamonds, pierced the darkness, offering the only celestial guidance across the seemingly endless horizon. But beneath this serene facade lurked a treacherous reality. The vastness that made it a vital trade route also made it a haven for those who preyed on the unsuspecting pirates. The year is 2024. A surge in pirate activity had been reported in the region, targeting commercial vessels carrying valuable cargo. Insurance premiums soared, and shipping companies rerouted their fleets, adding weeks to their journeys and millions to their expenses. The world held its breath, anxiously awaiting a solution to this resurgence of maritime menace. Against this backdrop of growing unease, the Merchant Star, a cargo ship registered out of Singapore, sliced through the dark waves. Her powerful engines hummed a steady rhythm, a defiant pulse against the silence of the night. She was a modern marvel, equipped with the latest navigation and communication technology, yet she remained vulnerable. Her hull, laden with precious cargo, a consignment of rare earth minerals destined for Europe, made her a tempting prize. The Merchant Star was no Leviathan. She was a workhorse, built for speed and efficiency, not for combat. Her crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh-faced recruits, were skilled seamen, not soldiers. Their training consisted of basic security protocols: how to lock down the ship in case of an emergency, how to operate the distress beacon, how to buy time. But against a determined and heavily armed pirate crew, their chances were slim. Captain Elias Thorne, a grizzled veteran with decades of experience navigating the world's oceans, stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The faint glow of the radar screen illuminated his weathered face, etched with the lines of countless voyages and countless storms weathered. That he trusted his crew, and he trusted his ship, but he also knew the odds. He'd heard the whispers, the warnings from other captains who had barely escaped pirate attacks. He knew they were sailing through dangerous waters. He took a long drag from his pipe, the cherry glow momentarily illuminating the bridge, chasing away the shadows. The air was thick with anticipation, a silent tension that permeated every corner of the ship. Thorne knew that every creak of the hull, every splash of the waves against the bow, could be masking the approach of something far more sinister. Below deck, nestled deep within the bowels of the Merchant Star, a different kind of tension was brewing. But this was not the tension of fear, but of coiled readiness. This was the tension of a predator, patiently waiting for its prey. Here, concealed from prying eyes, was the Special Operations Unit known as Spectre. They were the silent guardians, the unseen protectors, their presence a secret known only to a select few. They were the countermeasure, the silent promise of retribution against those who dared to threaten the Merchant Star. They were the reason this ship was not just another easy target. Their mission had begun long before the ship had left port, and tonight, it would either end in success or failure. There was no middle ground. While the Merchant Star cleaved through the waves, carrying its secret cargo and its silent protectors, a different vessel, a shadow against the greater darkness, plotted a collision course with fate. This was the Sea Serpent, the pirate ship commanded by the infamous Razor Ali. The Sea Serpent was a patchwork monstrosity, a testament to years of plunder and brutal repairs. Once a fishing trawler, she had been refitted and reinforced, her humble origins now masked by layers of stolen plating and hastily welded armor. Rust ate at her sides, a constant reminder of the unforgiving sea, but her engines, salvaged from a wrecked freighter, roared with surprising power. She was a brutal tool, designed for one purpose: to take what others possessed. On her deck, a band of hardened pirates, a motley collection of desperate souls and hardened criminals, prepared for their raid. They were a kaleidoscope of nationalities and scars, united by their shared hunger for wealth and their willingness to spill blood to obtain it. Each man carried a weapon: rusty AK-47s, machetes sharpened to razor edges, and crude but effective improvised explosives. Their faces were grim, etched with the harsh realities of their chosen life. They knew the risks, but the potential reward was enough to silence their fears, at least for now. Their leader, Razor Ali, was a figure of chilling charisma. That he was lean and wiry, with eyes that glittered with predatory intelligence. His face, framed by a tangled mess of black hair, bore a network of scars. Each a trophy from a past encounter, he moved with a quiet confidence. A predator assured of his kill, he wasn't the biggest or the strongest of his crew, but he commanded their respect, and their feared he had earned it through cunning, ruthlessness, and an uncanny ability to survive. Ali surveyed his crew, his gaze lingering on each man. Ensuring their readiness, he spoke in a low, gravelly voice, his words laced with a venomous intensity. "Tonight, we feast," he hissed, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "That fat merchant ship is ripe for the taking. She carries a treasure that will make us all rich. But remember this, there will be no hesitation and no mercy that we take what we want, and we leave no witnesses." Standing beside Ali was Hammer, his second in command, a mountain of a man with a face like granite. Hammer was the muscle, the enforcer, his loyalty bought with promises of plunder and a shared taste for violence. He was a brute, but he was also fiercely loyal to Ali. Respecting his cunning and his ability to lead, he carried a massive sledgehammer, his weapon of choice, which he wielded with terrifying efficiency. He grunted in agreement with Ali's words, his eyes fixed on the horizon, eager for the coming bloodshed. The pirates meticulously checked their weapons and equipment, ensuring everything was in working order. They knew the success of their raid depended on speed and precision. Ali had spent days studying the Merchant Star's route and security protocols, identifying its weaknesses and formulating a plan of attack. He had inside information, a contact within the shipping company who had provided him with crucial details about the ship's cargo and crew. The plan was intricate, relying on stealth and surprise, but Ali was confident in its success. He had planned hundreds of raids, and his meticulous preparation had rarely failed him. Tonight, he expected no different. The Sea Serpent accelerated, its engines roaring as it closed the distance to its unsuspecting prey. The hunt was on, while Razor Ali's Sea Serpent surged towards the Merchant Star with malicious intent. Below the decks of their target, the Special Operations Unit Spectre remained a silent, unseen force. Their presence was a closely guarded secret, known only to a handful of high-ranking officials and Captain Thorne himself. They were the insurance policy, the silent promise that even if the pirates managed to board, the Merchant Star would not fall without a fight. Spectre was an elite unit, handpicked from the best special forces operatives around the globe. They were masters of stealth, combat, and infiltration, trained to operate in the most hostile environments and under the most extreme pressure. Their mission was simple: to protect high-value assets in the Indian Ocean from pirate attacks and, if necessary, eliminate the threat with extreme prejudice. Their leader, Commander Eva Reyes, was a legend in the special operations community. She was a woman of unwavering resolve and ice-cold precision, her mind a steel trap, her body a finely tuned weapon. Years of combat had etched lines of determination on her face, and her eyes held a depth of experience that could intimidate even the most hardened veterans. She was respected and feared in equal measure, a leader who led from the front and demanded nothing less than perfection from her team. Reyes stood in the cramped confines of their makeshift command center, a small room carved out of the ship's cargo hold. The air was thick with the hum of electronic equipment and the scent of stale coffee. Around her, the members of Spectre monitored the ship's sensors and communication channels, their faces illuminated by the glow of their screens. They were a diverse group, each with their own unique skills and expertise, but united by their unwavering loyalty to Reyes and their commitment to the mission. Sergeant Major Ghost Ishikawa, the team's communications expert, monitored the radio frequencies, searching for any sign of pirate activity. His fingers danced across the keyboard, filtering through the static and chatter, seeking a telltale sign, a whispered code, anything that could give them an edge. That he was a master of electronic warfare, capable of intercepting and deciphering even the most encrypted communications. Corporal Tech Ramirez, the team's tech specialist, oversaw the ship's surveillance systems. He had tapped into the Merchant Star's cameras and sensors, providing Spectre with a comprehensive view of the ship's exterior and interior. He could see everything that was happening on board, from the movements of the crew to the smallest details of the cargo manifest. Rounding out the core team were two highly skilled combat specialists, Sergeant Wraith Johnson and Corporal Shadow Du Bois. Johnson was a demolitions expert, capable of breaching any obstacle with pinpoint accuracy. Du Bois was a master of close-quarters combat, a silent and deadly predator. Together, they formed the sharp edge of Spectre's spear, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Reyes addressed her team in a low, calm voice, her words carrying the weight of command. "The pirates are approaching," she said, her eyes scanning the faces of her team. "Intel suggests they are heavily armed and highly motivated. Our mission remains the same. Protect the cargo and the crew. Minimize casualties. Eliminate the threat." "Weapons-free, Commander?" Johnson asked, his voice barely a whisper. Reyes paused for a moment, her gaze hardening. "Not yet," she replied. "We wait for them to make the first move. Let them commit. Then, we unleash hell." Spectre waited, poised and ready. The silent guardians of the Merchant Star, prepared to face the darkness that was rapidly closing in. The sea serpent, a predator stalking its prey, drew alongside the Merchant Star. The darkness, once a cloak of concealment, now became a stage for violence. Razor Ali, his face a mask of grim determination, gave the signal. The attack began. Grappling hooks, launched with practiced precision, snaked across the gap between the two vessels, their metal claws biting into the Merchant Star's railings. Ropes followed, pulled taut by the straining pirates. Ali, agile as a cat, was the first to scramble aboard, his machete glinting in the starlight. Hammer, his bulk belying surprising speed, followed close behind, his sledgehammer a menacing presence. The rest of the pirate crew swarmed onto the Merchant Star, a tide of armed men surging across the deck. Their initial assault was swift and brutal, designed to overwhelm any resistance. They moved with ruthless efficiency, securing key areas of the ship with practiced ease. The element of surprise was entirely on their side. The Merchant Star's crew, caught completely off guard, were ill-prepared for the onslaught. They were seamen, not soldiers, and their training was no match for the pirates' experience in combat. Fear gripped them, turning their blood to ice. Most retreated, seeking refuge in the engine room or their cabins, hoping to ride out the storm that a few brave souls attempted to resist, but their efforts were futile that a lone security guard, armed with a pistol, confronted the pirates near the bridge. He managed to fire a few shots before being overwhelmed, his body falling to the deck, a stark reminder of the cost of defiance. Another sailor, armed with a wrench, charged at Hammer, only to be met with a crushing blow that sent him sprawling. The pirates quickly secured the main deck, the bridge, and the engine room, establishing control over the Merchant Star's vital systems. They moved with a chilling confidence, their shouts echoing through the ship's corridors, spreading terror and despair. Their initial objective was complete on the bridge. Razor Ali confronted Captain Thorne, who stood his ground, his face pale but resolute. Ali pressed the cold steel of his machete against Thorne's throat. "Where is the cargo?" he demanded, his voice a menacing whisper. "Tell me now, or you will be the first to die." Thorne, his eyes filled with defiance, refused to answer. He knew the value of the cargo, and he knew what the pirates intended to do with it. He would not betray his ship, his crew, or his company. That he would buy time, hoping that help would arrive. Below deck, in their hidden command center, Spectre monitored the unfolding chaos. They watched as the pirates secured the ship, their faces grim. The time for observation was over. The time for action had come. "They've taken the bridge," Ramirez reported, his voice tense. "Captain Thorne is their hostage." Reyes nodded, her eyes narrowing. "Confirmed," she said. "Ishikawa, cut off all external communications that we don't want them calling for reinforcements." "Done," Ishikawa replied, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Reyes turned to Johnson and Du Bois. "Wraith, Shadow," she said, her voice low and steady. "You're with me. We're going to take back the bridge. Let's remind these pirates why you don't bring a knife to a gunfight." The members of Spectre moved into action, their movements swift and precise. They were the countermeasure, the silent promise of retribution. The pirates had taken the first step, but they had no idea what was waiting for them in the shadows. The game was about to change. Even as Reyes, Wraith, and Shadow prepared to move on the bridge, the rest of Spectre continued to meticulously monitor the pirates' movements throughout the Merchant Star. The cramped command center hummed with the quiet intensity of professionals at work. The success of their operation hinged not only on their combat prowess, but also on the accuracy of their intelligence and the precision of their planning. Ghost Ishikawa, his fingers a blur across the keyboard, continued to scan for any external communications. The silence he maintained was crucial, preventing the pirates from calling for reinforcements or alerting their contacts ashore. He also worked to map the pirates' internal communication network, hoping to intercept their orders and anticipate their movements. He was the eyes and ears of the team, providing them with a constant stream of vital information. Tech Ramirez, meanwhile, used the ship's surveillance system to track the pirates' positions and movements. He had created a detailed map of the ship, overlaid with real-time data on the location of each pirate. He could see where they were patrolling, where they had set up defenses, and where they were holding the crew hostage. This information was invaluable in planning their counterattack, allowing them to avoid ambushes and target the pirates' weak points. Commander Reyes emphasized the importance of minimizing civilian casualties. The Merchant Star was not just a cargo ship. It was also home to a crew of innocent men and women. Reyes was determined to protect them, even at the risk of her own life. She knew that every decision she made could have life or death consequences, and she weighed each option carefully. "We need to know where the crew is being held," Reyes said, her voice calm but firm. "Ramirez, can you pinpoint their location?" "Affirmative, Commander," Ramirez replied. "Most of the crew are locked down in the engine room, and the galleed a few are being held hostage on the bridge." "What about the pirates' numbers?" Reyes asked. "Approximately 15, Commander," Ramirez reported. "They are heavily armed with AK-47s, machetes, and improvised explosives." Reyes nodded, her expression grim. "That's more than we anticipated," she said. "But it doesn't change our plan that we move with stealth and precision, that we take them down one by one. And we make sure that every member of the crew goes home safe." Before moving out, Reyes gathered the available blueprints of the ship. She studied them intently, memorizing the layout of the corridors, the location of the ventilation shafts, and the hidden access panels. She needed to know every inch of the ship to turn it into her team's hunting ground. "Rafe, you're with me," Reyes said, pointing to a specific route on the blueprint. "We'll use the ventilation shafts to bypass the main corridors and approach the bridge from the rear. Shadow, you'll provide cover from below that if things get hot, you'll create a diversion to draw the pirates away from our position." "Understood, Commander," Johnson and Du Bois replied in unison. Reyes took a deep breath, steeling herself for the coming battle. She knew that the next few minutes would be the most dangerous of her life, but she was ready. She had trained for this her entire career. She was Commander Eva Reyes, and she was not going to let these pirates win. The safety of the crew, the security of the cargo, and the reputation of Spectre were all on the line. It was time to go to work on the bridge. The atmosphere was thick with dread. Razor Ali, his machete still pressed against Captain Thorne's throat, grew increasingly impatient. The minutes ticked by, each one adding to the rising tension. The rhythmic pulse of the ship's engines seemed to amplify the silence, broken only by Ali's harsh demands. "I'm growing tired of your games, Captain," Ali snarled, his breath hot against Thorne's ear. "Tell me where the cargo is, or I will start killing your crew, one by one." He gestured towards Hammer, who stood menacingly behind Thorne, his sledgehammer resting casually on his shoulder. Thorne, despite the fear that gnawed at him, remained defiant. He knew that revealing the location of the cargo would seal the fate of the Merchant Star and its crew. He had to hold out, to buy time, hoping that Spectre would intervene before it was too late. That he met Ali's gaze, his eyes filled with a steely resolve. "I told you, I don't know," Thorne lied, his voice surprisingly steady. "I'm just the captain. That I follow orders. That I don't know what's in the cargo hold." Ali's eyes narrowed, his grip on the machete tightening. He didn't believe Thorne for a second. He could smell the fear on him, the desperation to protect his ship, but he also sensed a stubbornness, a refusal to break. He needed to find a way to crack him, and fast. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order," Ali said, his voice dripping with menace. He turned to Hammer and nodded. Hammer grinned, a chilling expression that revealed his yellowed teeth. He stepped forward and grabbed one of the bridge officers, a young man named Davies, who had been huddled in a corner, his face pale with terror. "Please no," Davies cried, his voice cracking with fear. "I have a family." Hammer ignored his pleas and dragged him towards the edge of the bridge. Overlooking the dark expanse of the ocean, he held Davies over the railing, the wind whipping through his hair. "Tell me where the cargo is, Captain," Ollie said, his voice cold and emotionless. "Or I will drop your officer into the sea, and then I will drop another, and another, until you tell me what I want to know." Thorne's heart sank. He couldn't let Davies die, but he also couldn't betray his ship. He was trapped in an impossible situation, torn between his duty and his conscience. He looked at Davies, his eyes pleading for understanding. I can't," Thorne stammered, his voice filled with anguish. "I just can't." Ollie's patience finally snapped. He raised his machete, the blade glinting in the dim light. "Very well, Captain," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "You have made your choice." Just as Ollie was about to strike, a voice echoed through the bridge, cutting through the tension like a knife. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," the voice said, calm and steady. Ollie whirled around, his eyes searching for the source of the sound. He had thought the bridge was secure. How could someone have gotten past his men? Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the corridor, was Commander Eva Reyes. Beside her stood Rafe Johnson, his weapon raised and ready. The game had changed. The hunter had become the hunted. Reyes' sudden appearance on the bridge was the signal. Spectres. Counterattack had begun. While Reyes and Rafe held the pirates on the bridge in check, Shadow initiated his diversion below, creating chaos and drawing attention away from Reyes' team. Shadow, a master of stealth and misdirection, moved through the ship's lower decks like a ghost. He used his knowledge of the ship's layout to his advantage, slipping through ventilation shafts and hidden passages, avoiding the pirates' patrols. His objective was to create as much confusion as possible, to make the pirates think they were under attack from multiple directions. He started by disabling the ship's lights, plunging the lower decks into darkness. Then, he used flashbang grenades to disorient the pirates, creating bursts of blinding light and deafening sound. The pirates, already on edge, panicked, firing wildly into the darkness, unsure of where the attack was coming from. While the pirates were distracted by Shadow's diversion, Ghost and Tech began their own operations. Ghost used his electronic warfare skills to jam the pirates' communications, preventing them from coordinating their response. Tech, meanwhile, used the ship's surveillance system to feed the pirates false information, leading them into dead ends and ambushes. Reyes, Rafe, and Shadow moved with deadly efficiency. They were a well-oiled machine, each member knowing their role and executing it flawlessly. Their superior training and weaponry gave them a distinct advantage over the pirates that on the bridge. Reyes engaged Razor Ollie in a tense standoff. "It's over, Ollie," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Release the captain and surrender. It's the only way you're getting out of here alive." Ollie sneered. "You think you can stop me?" he said, his eyes filled with hatred. "This ship is mine now, and I will not let you take it from me." He lunged at Reyes, his machete flashing in the dim light. Reyes sidestepped the attack with ease, her movements fluid and graceful. She drew her pistol and fired 2 shots, hitting Ollie in the shoulder and the leg. Ollie cried out in pain. Dropping his machete, he stumbled backward, clutching his wounds. Rafe moved forward and disarmed him, securing his hands behind his back. With Ollie subdued, Reyes turned her attention to Hammer, who was still holding Davies over the railing. "Let him go, Hammer," she said, her voice commanding. "It's over." Hammer hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting between Reyes and Ollie. He knew that he was outmatched, but he also knew that if he surrendered, he would face justice for his crimes. That he made a desperate decision. With a roar, he tossed Davies into the sea. Then he charged at Reyes, his sledgehammer raised high above his head. Reyes reacted instantly. Diving out of the way of the hammer's deadly arc, she rolled to her feet and fired her pistol, hitting Hammer in the chest. Hammer staggered backward, his eyes wide with shock. That he looked down at the blood spreading across his shirt, then back at Reyes, his face filled with rage. He raised his hammer again. But before he could swing, Rafe stepped forward and fired a burst from his assault rifle, hitting Hammer in the head. Hammer collapsed to the deck, his massive body crashing to the floor with a deafening thud. The remaining pirates on the bridge, seeing their leaders defeated, surrendered without a fight. Below deck, Spectre continued to systematically eliminate the remaining pirates. They used stealth and surprise to their advantage, taking down small groups of pirates before they could mount a coordinated defense. The close-quarters combat was brutal and unforgiving, but Spectre's superior training and weaponry allowed them to prevail. Despite the surrender of the pirates on the bridge and the initial success of Spectre's coordinated attacks below deck, the remaining pirates, though disoriented and scattered, were far from defeated. The darkness, which had initially aided Spectre's stealth, now became a double-edged sword, providing cover for the pirates to regroup and mount a more organized resistance. The pirates, realizing that they were facing a highly trained and well-equipped force, abandoned their initial plan of a swift and easy plunder. Their survival now depended on their ability to adapt and fight back. They used their knowledge of the ship's layout to their advantage, setting up ambushes and booby traps in the corridors and cargo holds. Leading the resistance was a hulking pirate named Bozorg, a veteran of countless raids and a man known for his ferocity and unwavering loyalty to Razor Ali. Though Hammer was dead, his brutality inspired the remaining pirates to continue fighting. Bozorg rallied the remaining pirates, reminding them of the riches that awaited them if they could defeat Spectre and seize the cargo. That he instilled in them a sense of desperate resolve, turning them from a band of disorganized looters into a cohesive fighting force. "They may be better trained," Bozorg roared, his voice echoing through the darkened corridors, "but we are more numerous. We know this ship. We will fight them to the death." The pirates, emboldened by Bozorg's words, began to push back against Spectre's advance. They used their AK-47s to unleash a hail of gunfire, forcing Spectre to take cover. They threw grenades and Molotov cocktails, turning the ship's corridors into a fiery gauntlet. Shadow, continuing his diversion, found himself increasingly pinned down. The pirates, realizing that his attacks were a distraction, focused their efforts on eliminating him. He was forced to rely on his superior agility and stealth to evade their attacks, slipping through narrow passages and using the darkness to his advantage. Ghost and Tech, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to support Spectre's advance. Ghost continued to jam the pirates' communications, preventing them from coordinating their attacks. Tech used the ship's surveillance system to provide Spectre with real-time intelligence on the pirates' movements, allowing them to anticipate ambushes and avoid traps. Reyes, having secured the bridge, joined the fight below deck. She moved with Wraith through the ship's corridors, systematically clearing each section of pirates. Their superior training and weaponry allowed them to prevail in close-quarters combat, but the pirates' sheer numbers and fierce resistance made the fighting slow and arduous. The ship became a chaotic battleground, filled with the sounds of gunfire, explosions, and desperate cries. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. The pirates, driven by greed and desperation, fought with a ferocity that surprised even Spectre. The outcome of the battle was far from certain. The tide was turning. The pirates had found their second wind as the battle raged below deck. Reyes received a disturbing report from Tech. Bozorg and a small group of his most loyal pirates were attempting to break into the ship's brig, where Ali was being held. Tech believed that Bozorg intended to free Ali and use him as leverage to negotiate their escape. Reyes knew she couldn't allow that to happen. Ali was too dangerous to be left alive or allowed to escape. She had to stop Bozorg before he reached the brig. Leaving Wraith to continue clearing the lower decks, Reyes, accompanied by Shadow, made her way back to the bridge. The ship was in lockdown, but they could use Tech's override codes to open the necessary doors. Reaching the bridge, they found it eerily quiet. The bodies of Hammer and the surrendered pirates had been moved, and Captain Thorne was tending to his injured arm. The bridge was mostly functional, but the atmosphere was heavy with the aftermath of violence. "Captain," Reyes said, her voice grim, "Bozorg is trying to free Ali. That we need to move him to a more secure location." Thorne nodded, his face pale. "What about the rest of my crew?" he asked. "We're working on it," Reyes replied. "But right now, our priority is to secure Ali and prevent Bozorg from escaping." Reyes ordered Shadow to remain on the bridge to guard Thorne and secure the area. She then contacted Ghost and Tech, instructing them to provide her with real-time updates on Bozorg's location. With the situation rapidly deteriorating, Reyes knew she had to act decisively. With a sense of grim determination, Reyes set off towards the brig, armed with her pistol and a tactical shotgun. Ghost guided her through a less traveled route, avoiding the areas where the fighting was most intense. As she neared the brig, Ghost's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Bozorg is just ahead, Commander," Ghost reported. "He's barricading the door to the brig. He's heavily armed and has at least 3 other pirates with him." Reyes slowed her pace, her senses on high alert. She could hear the sounds of heavy objects being moved and the muffled voices of the pirates. She knew that a direct assault would be risky. She needed a plan. Using her knowledge of the ship's blueprints, Reyes located a maintenance access panel that led to a narrow corridor running behind the brig. It was a tight squeeze, but it would allow her to flank Bozorg and his men. With a deep breath, Reyes pried open the access panel and squeezed through the narrow opening. The corridor was dark and cramped, the air thick with dust and the smell of oil. She moved slowly and silently, her weapon raised and ready. Reaching the end of the corridor, Reyes found herself behind Bozorg and his men. They were so focused on barricading the door to the brig that they didn't notice her approach. She had the element of surprise. Taking a deep breath, Reyes burst out of the corridor, her shotgun blazing. The pirates, caught completely off guard, cried out in surprise and pain as they were struck by the shotgun's deadly blast. Bozorg, however, managed to react quickly. Diving behind a stack of crates for cover, the fierce firefight erupted in the narrow corridor. Reyes exchanged shots with Bozorg, the bullets ricocheting off the steel walls. She knew she couldn't stay in the open for long. She needed to take Bozorg down quickly. Using her superior training and tactical skills, Reyes managed to outmaneuver Bozorg, flanking him and forcing him out of cover. With a final shot, she struck Bozorg in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The remaining pirates, seeing their leader defeated, surrendered without a fight. Reyes, breathing heavily, secured the brig and checked on Ollie. He was unharmed but shaken. She knew that the battle was far from over, but she had prevented Bozorg from freeing Ollie. A small victory in the midst of chaos. The fight for the Merchant Star continued. With Bozorg dead and the brig secured, Reyes believed the worst was over. However, Ghost contacted her with more unsettling news. "Commander, we have a problem. Several pirates have managed to break through our lines and are heading towards the bridge." Reyes knew that if the pirates reached the bridge, they could use Captain Thorne as a hostage again, or, worse, try to take control of the ship. She had to get back there and reinforce Shadow. Leaving the remaining pirates guarding the brig, Reyes raced back to the bridge, her heart pounding with each step that as she approached the bridge entrance. She could hear the sounds of gunfire and shouting. The pirates had already reached the bridge. Bursting through the door, Reyes found Shadow engaged in a fierce firefight with 3 pirates. The bridge was in chaos, with bullets flying in all directions and sparks erupting from damaged equipment. Captain Thorne was huddled on the floor, trying to stay out of the line of fire. Reyes quickly assessed the situation and joined the fight, her pistol blazing. She took down one pirate with a well-aimed shot, while Shadow eliminated another. The remaining pirate, seeing his comrades fall, charged at Reyes. His eyes filled with rage, Reyes sidestepped the attack and disarmed the pirate, sending his weapon flying across the bridge. The pirate, however, refused to give up, launching himself at Reyes in a desperate attempt to overpower her. A brutal hand-to-hand combat ensued. Reyes and the pirate exchanged blows, their movements fast and furious. Reyes, despite her smaller size, was a skilled fighter, trained in a variety of martial arts. She used her agility and technique to gain the upper hand, dodging the pirates' attacks and landing precise strikes. Suddenly, Razor Ali, who had been feigning unconsciousness, seized the opportunity to escape his restraints. He lunged at Reyes from behind, his hands reaching for her throat. Reyes, sensing the danger, spun around and grabbed Ali's arm, using his momentum to throw him off balance. Ali crashed to the floor, his head striking the console with a sickening thud. Before Ali could recover, Reyes pounced on him, pinning him to the ground. She straddled his chest, her hands gripping his throat. "It's over, Ali," she said, her voice cold and emotionless. "You're finished." Ali struggled against her grip, His face turning red, he clawed at Reyes' hands. But she held on tight, her determination unwavering. The remaining pirate, seeing his leader being choked, tried to intervene, but Shadow quickly subdued him, knocking him unconscious with a swift blow to the head. Reyes continued to squeeze Ali's throat, cutting off his air supply, but Ali's struggles grew weaker. His eyes widening with panic that he knew that he was about to die. Just as Ali was about to lose consciousness, Reyes released her grip. She knew that killing him would be a violation of her orders. She was a soldier, not an executioner. Gasping for air, Ali lay on the floor, his body trembling that he looked at Reyes with a mixture of fear and hatred. "You should have killed me," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "You will regret this." Reyes ignored his words and stood up, her gaze sweeping across the bridge. The remaining pirates had been subdued, and the bridge was once again under Spectre's control. But the battle for the Merchant Star was far from over. There were still pirates to be dealt with, and the fate of the ship and its crew hung in the balance. The final showdown was imminent. Reyes, standing on the blood-stained bridge, knew that despite securing the area, Spectre's mission was far from complete. The remaining pirates scattered throughout the ship needed to be neutralized, and the Merchant Star had to be completely secured. Calling Wraith, Ghost, and Tech to her location, she quickly formulated a plan. Wraith, with his combat expertise, would lead the final sweep of the ship, clearing out any remaining pockets of resistance. Ghost would focus on restoring the ship's communication systems, allowing them to contact the authorities and request assistance. Tech would continue to monitor the ship's systems and provide tactical support to Wraith. With the plan in place, Reyes turned her attention to Captain Thorn. "Captain, I need your help," she said. "I need you to gather your crew and assess the damage to the ship. We need to know if we can make it to port or if we need to call for a rescue." Thorn, still shaken by the events of the night, nodded in agreement. He quickly rallied his crew, and together they began to assess the damage to the ship. Meanwhile, Wraith, with Tech providing intel, moved through the ship, systematically clearing each section of any remaining pirates. The pirates, demoralized by the loss of their leaders and the overwhelming force of Spectre's counterattack, offered little resistance. They were quickly subdued and taken into custody. Within a few hours, Spectre had secured the entire Merchant Star. The pirates had been defeated, the crew had been rescued, and the valuable cargo was safe. The Merchant Star, though battered and bruised, was still afloat. Ghost managed to restore the ship's communications systems, and Reyes contacted headquarters, reporting the successful completion of the mission. She requested a naval escort to guide the Merchant Star to the nearest port. As dawn broke over the Indian Ocean, the Merchant Star limped towards the horizon, escorted by a heavily armed naval vessel. The battle was over, but the memories of the night would linger for a long time. Razor Ali, his wounds treated but his spirit broken, was confined to the brig, awaiting extradition to face justice for his crimes. Hammer, the hulking brute who had terrorized the Merchant Star, was dead, his reign of violence brought to an end. The crew of the Merchant Star, though traumatized by their ordeal, were grateful to be alive. They had witnessed firsthand the brutality of piracy and the courage and skill of Spectre. They would never forget the night that they were saved by the silent guardians who had protected them from the shadows. Reyes, standing on the bridge, surveyed the scene. The Merchant Star was safe, the crew was alive, and the cargo was secure. Spectre had once again proven their worth, protecting the innocent and bringing justice to the guilty. But Reyes knew that the fight against piracy was far from over. The Indian Ocean was a vast and dangerous place, and there would always be those who sought to prey on the weak and vulnerable. Spectre would continue to stand watch, ready to answer the call whenever and wherever they were needed. Their mission was never-ending. The price of freedom was eternal vigilance. The Merchant Star sailed onward, escorted by the naval vessel. Commander Reyes made her final report to headquarters. The communication was brief and concise, a factual account of the night's events. She detailed the pirate attack, Spectre's response, the casualties sustained, and the apprehension of Razor Ali and his remaining crew. "Mission accomplished," she concluded, her voice devoid of emotion. "The Merchant Star is secure, and the cargo is safe. Spectre is standing down." The voice on the other end of the line, Admiral Hayes, replied with a tone of professional respect. Well done, Commander Reyes. Your team's performance was exemplary. You have once again proven the value of Spectre in combating the threat of piracy. Return to base for debriefing and reassignment. Reyes acknowledged the order and terminated the communication. She turned to her team, who were gathered on the bridge, their faces etched with fatigue. That's it, team, she said. Mission accomplished. Time to head home. A collective sigh of relief swept through the team. They had faced death and danger, but they had prevailed. They had done their duty, protecting the innocent and upholding the law. They were professionals, and they had performed their task with skill and courage. The Merchant Star continued its voyage, now under the watchful eye of the naval escort. Captain Thorne and his crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage to the ship and restore its functionality. They were grateful for the protection of Spectre and determined to complete their mission, delivering the valuable cargo to its destination. As the Merchant Star sailed towards the horizon, the story of the night's events spread throughout the maritime community. The tale of the daring raid, the fierce resistance, and the unwavering courage of Spectre became a legend, a testament to the dedication of those who fought to protect the sea lanes from the scourge of piracy. But the story also served as a stark reminder of the ongoing threat that piracy posed to international trade and security. The Indian Ocean remained a dangerous place, a haven for criminals and terrorists who sought to exploit the vulnerabilities of the maritime system. The resurgence of piracy in the region was a complex problem, driven by poverty, corruption, and political instability. It required a multifaceted approach, involving international cooperation, economic development, and law enforcement. Spectre was just one piece of the puzzle, a highly specialized unit tasked with responding to the most extreme threats. But their efforts, combined with those of other law enforcement agencies and international partners, were making a difference. The number of pirate attacks was declining, and the sea lanes were becoming safer. The story of the Merchant Star was a story of courage, resilience, and